Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. It is a very, very cold Sunday morning here in the southwest of England where I am. We've got a lot of snow overnight. We were on a snow and ice weather warning, not weather morning, from about Friday afternoon until tomorrow morning, and we had loads of ice. It was so slippery yesterday, and then this morning I got a text from my mum saying, have you seen the snow? I was like, no, and I realised after the curtains closed, open it, and it's like a winter wonderland outside, and it's still snowing, and we're meant to have snow throughout the day, so let's see how much snow falls the rest of the day. So what's been going on this week? I obviously been working, but I've been listening to the Bridgerton audiobooks, and I've gotten through 4 books in a week. That's mental, because I really enjoyed watching Bridgerton and I wanted to get the books, but weirdly there's 8 books that have been published, but here in the UK you can only buy physical books 1 to 5, and because of demand with Bridgerton that's with the Netflix release, various bookshops have only had the 1 book available, so I was like, well, all 8 books are on Audible, I'll just listen to them through Audible, and I've gotten through 4 so far, but in order to buy the others I have to wait until payday, which is this coming Friday, so I have to go 5 days without listening to the next Bridgerton book. How will I cope? But I'm really enjoying them, and also I am so super excited because my sister has read the first Matthew Shardley book by CJ Sansom, the series which I absolutely adore, and she loved it, and I'm so excited for her to read the rest of the series. It was really great getting messages from her as she was reading, and her getting even more excited about every chapter and what was going to happen next. So we're going to do a video about that, along with the absolutely tons of videos that we have decided to make together once she is able to come here, once coronavirus restrictions and such change, but we don't know when that's going to be. So as soon as she's able to, she is planning to come over, stay as long as she possibly can, and we make loads of videos for you guys, okay? So yeah, so that's our plan as soon as we're able to. So anyway, enough about what I've been doing this week. Let's talk about the book I'm here to review, which is Bearmouth by Liz Hyder. Now, I'm going to confess, because this week was so stressful with work and so tiring, I literally, at the end of each working day, I was just too tired to pick up my book. So much so, I didn't start this until Friday, in which I read 10 pages, and then I was too tired to carry on, because end of the working week and all that lot. So I was like, right, you've got no plans for the weekend, just apart from doing a little bit of food shopping. Do your food shopping first thing Saturday morning, which is what I did. Then you've got all day Saturday and then Sunday to read and see how you go. I ended up reading this in 1 sitting yesterday, and oh my god, I am so glad I decided to wait until I was rested. I didn't have to think about work, and I wasn't stressed, and I wasn't absolutely exhausted. I just wow, and I'm still thinking about it. I'm still asking questions. So in case you don't know what this book is about, Bearmouth is the debut novel by Liz Hyder. It came out in 2019, and her second novel is due out in a month's time. I think it's called The Giver, but the writing styles of them are very, very different. The Giver looks like is written in standard third-person perspective and everything, but this is written phonetically from the point of view of a child who's about 12 years old, although we never officially know how old our main character Newt is, because even he doesn't know. And so it's very jarring when you come to read it. It has no punctuation, and it's done phonetically. So yes, so Newt lives and works down a coal mine that's called Bearmouth. He's worked down that mine since he was 4 years old when he was first sent down there, and has never seen daylight since. It's full of boys of Newt's age and younger, as well as older, who have grown up in the mine or are now teenagers or adults who have remained in the mine to work. And Newt very much recognises that he is part of a system. There are certain rules that he has to follow. There's a certain way of life. Every Sunday is known as Maker's Day, where they give thanks for what they have done, what their maker, their god, has provided them. And every single Maker's Day, they recite this prayer or poem, it's a song, should I say, but it is kind of like a prayer or a poem. And in it, it explains that they are down the mine in order to absolve the sins of generations previously. And the maker will show them a sign when it's time to kind of move on, as it were, that when there's something is going to happen, it will happen, but the maker has to give them the sign. So because Newt's had this ingrained in him since he was 4 years old, it is his world. He does what he's told to do because that is his upbringing, that is his world. Then one day a new boy arrives called Devlin, who asks the question, why? Simply, why? Why is this happening? Why are they down a coal mine? Why do we have to follow these rules? And all of a sudden, Newt's world is completely thrown into chaos because he's never asked that question before. And it starts a chain reaction in which we see things, the mind becomes a lot darker, a lot sinister. There is corruption everywhere, but it's in plain sight, but nobody can see it until he has been asked that question, why? And the first line on the back of the book says, it only takes one person to start a revolution. And so you can understand kind of what this possibly is going forward into. It's about friendship and loyalty and standing up for what you believe in and seeing things that are wrong and putting things right. It's absolutely blown my mind. This basically is a child/young adult fiction book where if you basically combined The Hunger Games, Lord of the Flies and Handmaid's Tale, this would be the baby. This would be what is produced. And I honest to God, I did not anticipate. I'm not somebody who reads a book in one sitting unless it's a very short book, because I like every hour or so I have a break and I need to walk around, do something else, listen to music, come back again. It's just as I've gotten older, it's just something that's what I do. I break it up, or if I want to sit a bit longer, then I do that. If it's a book that I like, say the Cormoran Strike books, which I absolutely adore, I got through that. Troubled Blood was 1,000 pages. I got through that in 5 days because I adore that world. I want to stay in that world for as long as possible. But for a brand new book, I might, I break it up and such. Not this one. I literally sat and I just went through the entire thing in one sitting. And my God, was I so taken aback by this. I totally get why this has won a load of awards, why Liz Hyder just stood out amongst child literature in 2019. I went to a literature festival event in Cheltenham in 2019. It was talking about children's literature, the classics, and why we constantly go back to them and such. And they were looking forward, in the future. And there was a guy on the panel who brought up Bearmouth, and he had a copy with him, and he said, look, I was so taken aback by this young adult fiction novel, so much so I think it's going to be a modern classic. And my God, do I agree with him. Every single moment of this just was so interesting, to see this world through the eyes of a child. And what I cannot get out of my head is the fact that everywhere you look, the descriptions about this book, there's always at least one reference to it being a Victorian novel, because it's about children in England, in coal mines working because they have to help their families and such. And the fact that Newt has been there since he's 4 years old, Victorian, just completely fills your mind for that. I don't think it is. I honest to God don't think it is. This could be a dystopian novel. This is why I'm like, Handmaid's Tale, single point of view, starting a revolution, plus all of these boys, because it's all boys. Then Lord of the Flies kind of stuff. It's starting a revolution from seeing about how corruption and such bring in the Hunger Games. But I'm like, is this an actual, is this a historic piece of fiction, or is this a possible dystopian novel? I just keep on thinking about all of these references throughout. And what is so clever is that she never once in this book, Liz never refers to the year that it takes place. She never refers to locations. She never, apart from like occasionally referencing the type of materials that people are wearing, such as at one point there's one of the guys who's kind of in charge is wearing tweed, very different from the scraps and such that the workers are wearing, full of holes and rips and all sorts, and they're all covered with sweat because of working down the coal pits. Apart from that, she never refers to fashion style, which could pin it on a certain time. And it's, oh God, my mind keeps on flooding with possibilities of where is this actually set? Because we never refer to it. When is it set? The accents that people have, it's very rare that you come across books where very little description is given about characters, how they look, size, weights, eye color, haircut, all that stuff. Very, very rare does that happen. And she does that in this book. The reader is in complete control of how they see various characters, various locations. The time, I am utterly floored by this writing. And this is her debut novel. Like, this is, I'm blown away. On the front cover, there is a quote here there's two quotes. Like nothing I've read before, hand in mouth gripping by the Times, very true. And then Kieran Millward Hargrave said, it blew my mind. I totally agree. I was so shook by this book, and the ending is absolute perfection. This could so be, if it was this, the way that I saw it, this dystopian kind of thing, this could so be the first book of a series, but it's not. And the bluntness of the ending, and it was so great because it's no longer Newt's recording of his story. It's his life. And he's gonna live that life now. And I'm like, hell yeah. So to have it be one novel makes so much sense. Now, for the writing style, you really, really need to be aware of the phonetic stuff when you pick this up. I think that's why on the first day that I read it on Friday, I only got through like 10 pages, because it's jarring. You cannot help but be jarred by this. It's written literally full stops and commas are the only punctuation you get throughout this book, and even then they're quite sparse. Full stops are the one punctuation that is constant throughout. The commas, they're quite sparse because it's written from Newt's understanding of where you put commas in a sentence, where it's appropriate, as this 12-year-old who's still learning to read and write. So it's quite, they're not there that often, but it is what it is. And also you have to get used to Newt's writing. So, for example, because there's no like apostrophes. If you had the word heel, it's spelt hell. If you have, and another thing is the two words that are constantly referred to in this book are like, because Newt constantly says the word like. It's because it's written, because it's phonetically, and it's the way that Newt writes, it's very casual. And because Newt says the word like often in the way that he talks, like is written constantly. And the other word is lake, because the lake, is an area where they're able to get washed, once, I think it was once a week or once every few days. Oh no, it's once a week because it's Maker's Day. And yes, so there's like and lake, and like is spelled L-Y-K-E, and lake is L-A-Y-K-E. So I had to keep on kind of training my mind, because I'd see those words constantly referred to, and I would get them muddled up because I was reading it. I was just going the flow, and then suddenly I'm like, oh no, he's referring to being in the lake, not being in the like, things like that. But there are lots of other spellings as well. So I'm just going to hold up a page just to show you what I mean. So this is talking about the arrival of Devlin. But you can see like maker is M-A-Y-K-E-R, and such, and there's absolutely no quotation marks within there. There's nothing there's very, all of the different paragraphs are very strange, because it is as Newt writes this account of what happened. And so so when you go into this, don't expect it to be just like a standard written novel, because it's not. I was really taken aback by that, of course, just as you would just in general if you're getting a phonetic book. But other phonetic books that I've read have been like Irvine Welsh, where it's an adult writing from an adult's perspective about an adult situation, not a child who is learning to read and write. So everything is kind of distorted and such, but the purpose of writing it in that format makes total and utter sense to the character. And I think if this was written from a third person perspective, it wouldn't necessarily work. I really think it totally works and is appropriate for that format. So yeah, expect to be a little jarred when you first go into this book if you decide to read it. So I'm going to find one of these markings that I decided to quote from. Which one was it? Sorry, I marked 3 of them, and I haven't prepared for this video properly. I haven't looked back over what I'd put. Okay, so this kind of explains about the darkness and stuff that they are witnessing after Devlin has arrived and asked the question, why? Okay, so this is Newt is talking about payday, because they get paid once a month and such, and but all of their money they have to pay towards like being able to use the lake to get washed. They have to pay for their foods and such. The older teenagers and adults are able to pay for beer once a week on Maker's Day and such. So this is following that, and there are a few people in Newt's life that are very important in this book. So there's Devlin, as mentioned, the new boy. There's Toby, who's a really good friend who has a pet mouse, even though they're not allowed to keep animals. That it was just this mouse that's down the pit that he's befriended, and so looks after him. And there's Thomas, who is described as being at least twice the age of Newt, so around 24 years old, 20, early to mid 20s. But that's all the description we really get. And Thomas is the one who is teaching Newt to read and write, and thus we have this account by Newt. So this is Newt talking about payday and the corruptions that he's starting to see. Payday makes me nervous, see. all that power crackling around Bearmouth. And today, me and Toby seen some of that. I'm sure, as sure can be, that we weren't supposed to, and now we both must keep ever secret. You see, the language is quite very odd, but it's the way that Newt talks, or Newt records his words. After letters, me and Toby is heading back to work, and Mouse is wriggling out of Toby's pocket. Let him go, I says, holding Toby back as Mouse scurries off, but he twists free of me and goes after. I can't afford to be late back to shift, else Jack will lose his temper, and I follows after Toby anyways, muttering stupid Mouse to myself. I follows Toby's candle, flickering round corners and downhill past the barrier that we ain't supposed to go past, 'cause it does denote a part that we ain't allowed in no more. Dead passages, they're called, is when all is being ripped out of its core and there ain't no more black gold for the taking. 2 more corners round and I sees him stooped in a corner and scooping up that blasted mouse. Hurry up, I hiss, but I hear someone's coming, so I runs over and blows out his light. If we are caught here, there'd be trouble. 'Tis out of boundaries. I hold Toby close to me in the dark, feeling his heart beating. Shh, I whisper. I feel him nod, clasping Mouse tight to his chest. A light flickers further down the dead passage. Ain't no other supposed to be down here, see? I hears voices now too. Shh, I say to Toby as I holds my finger to his lips. I creeps forward, tiptoeing down the passage towards the voices, with my arms out, feeling my way in the dark. Who else might be down here? I was thinking. Toby reaches for my hand as we both edges forward towards the light. We should go back, said Toby, whispering. Wait, I say. Shh. I creeps forward till I can just about see round the corner. I inches it peeks out behind this support post, clutching it with my hand, nails digging into the muddy wood. I peeks down the narrow passage and there's a man on his knees, candlelight flickering on him. I sees his face 'cause he's looking up like I don't know him. He ain't familiar to me. I strain to hear what he says, but 'tis clear that he is upset, half sobbing. His face is all battered. Please, he says, please. Another man that I can't see him hits him hard about the face. There's a shadow of a third man in the candlelight. It ain't what you think, says the man on his knees. Blood runs from his nose. 'Tis just talk is all. I ain't done nothing wrong. He gets hit again for that, right around his head. I wince at the sound of it. Careless talk, says the man in the shadows. Riling the others, getting worked up. You can't have that now, can we, Rickaby? Can't have awkward men here. Gathering is forbidden outside of mess storms. Ain't we told you that afore? There won't be no trouble no more, says the man they call Rickaby, stiffling like. No, says the shadow man. No, there won't. No groups, no gathering, no talk, no disobedience. Make him learn his lessons, he says to the man doing all the hitting, and he goes in again on him. Rickaby cries out, but there ain't none to hear him, save me and Toby. Banish me, he says, tween blows. Banish me as an awkward man. Oh, you'll be banished all right, said the voice in the shadows. There's time enough for that yet. Carry on, he says to the fellow as the fists rain down upon Rickaby. Make us, save us. 'Tis like they mean to batter him to his last breath, and there ain't nothing I can do. We can't keep watching, though. This ain't for the youngs. So, as you can see, even then, I felt it wasn't too bad reading that, but then occasionally a word, and I'm like, what's he say? Oh, yeah, apostrophes and all, funny spellings, all of that lot. But once you get used to it, it really does flow. And it's so strange that as you're reading it, especially at the beginning of the book with Newt, the darkness, the shadows, the weird corridors and avenues are just second nature. They don't mean anything. And then suddenly they're dark and they're sinister and they're cold. And darkness is your friend, but then darkness becomes your enemy in a world where you can't remember seeing the sun. It's so extraordinary. And the fact that, you know, it's teaching about even the smallest person can start a revolution. It only takes one person to stand up and say, no, you are wrong. And what that teaches a younger audience is fantastic. It is so well paced. It's actiony without being too actiony. The perspective of a child in this situation, learning to understand what an adult world truly is and seeing things that they couldn't see before, was absolutely wonderful to read. I can't gush enough about this book. So I'm 25 minutes in, so I'm gonna bring this to a close. But all the characters were great. The way that it was structured, the story, the pacing, the ending, that I could visualize, it was so visceral. It was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful read. So, would I read Bearmouth again? Yeah, I definitely would. I think now, knowing what I know of the world, I would like to go back and reread it and see if there's anything else that I pick up that I couldn't see before, because I was seeing it through Newt, where going, this is perfectly normal, and such. So I'd like to do that. Would I recommend this to anyone? Yes, I certainly would. I'd say go out and get it and read it, but be aware of how the phonetic text can be quite jarring at first, but once you get into the flow of it, it's all good. Would I read any more of Liz Hyder's book? Yes, definitely. As I said, this is her debut novel. Her second novel comes out in actually a month today. It's the 24th of February. Her next book comes out, which, from quotes from a website, looks like it's written third person standard novel. But I'd very much like to give any more of her work a go. So those are my thoughts on Bearmouth by Liz Hyder. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave me a comment in the comment box below, or give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely up to you on your side. And I'll be back with my thoughts on my next read, which I've already announced. And that is The Mermaid Singing by Val McDermott. She is a crime writer. She has, I think it's either a 3 or 4 series of books, each ones that follow different detectives. And this is the first book of her Tony Hill detective series. This is the 20th anniversary edition, which came out in 2015. And I have seen her take part in panels or be the interviewer at various events at Cheltenham Literature Festival, but I've never ever picked up one of her books, and now I am. So let's see what I think of The Mermaid Singing. So I'll be back with my thoughts on that as soon as I'm done. All right then, guys. Bye.